Now, halves is when we take one whole piece or one whole pizza, one whole orange, or one whole cookie, and we're going to cut it into halves. The way that we do that is we need to learn what this word halves means. It means we're cutting it in half. This is how you spell the word half. Do you hear the f on the end? Half. The L is silent. It doesn't make any noise. So this is the word half. We need to cut these things in half. So how would we do that on a fraction bar? This is one whole fraction bar. To cut it in half means I'm going to cut it right in the middle. If I were to cut this fraction bar right here with a big pair of scissors, is this piece going to be the same size as this piece? Now this piece is smaller, isn't it? These are not equal size pieces. That is not cutting it in halves. To cut it in half, we have to cut it right down the middle. So we're going to cut right down the middle. Now, does this piece look like it's the same size as that piece? Yes, this has been cut into halves. These two pieces together, this is 1/2, and this is 1/2. There's that word half. We have 1/2 and another half. Together, they make a whole. They are the same size. 1/2 plus another half is the same size as one whole. Together, we have 2 halves. Again, the L is silent. Halves. Do you see the S on the end, friends? Do you remember when we were in reading class and we learned that when an S is on the end of a word, that means we have more than one? Well, we've got 2. So that's why there's an S on the end. This is the word halves because there's more than one. If I only had 1/2, I would spell it like this, half. Okay, let's take our shapes and let's cut our shapes into halves. Okay, so if I were to take this pizza and cut it right here, is this size the same as that size piece? Are they the same size pieces? No, I need to cut it more about right there, don't I? Okay, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it into halves. Here goes. Okay, now look, I have 2 halves. 1/2 and another half. Together, they equal 1 whole pizza. 1 whole pizza is the same amount as 2 halves. 2 halves makes 1 whole. Here is 1/2, 1. Here is 2 halves, and together they make a whole. Okay, let's take our orange. If I take my orange and I cut it right here, let's do it like this. Is this piece of the orange the same size as that piece? Is that cutting it into halves? Are these two sizes halves? No, if we're cutting something into halves, they have to be equal size pieces. Equal, my friends, means that they have to both be the same. So if I cut it right here, Does this piece of the orange look like it's the same size as that piece of the orange? Yes, those are halves. So I would cut it into halves, cutting it right down the middle. I'm going to go ahead and cut the stem off so it's not in the way. Okay, so 2 halves together equals 1 whole orange. 2 halves makes 1 whole. Okay, let's try the chocolate chip cookie. If I cut it right here, are those equal size pieces? Is this piece the same size as that piece? That wouldn't be fair. If I had to share this cookie with you, I'd want that piece. Let's make them equal size pieces so we can share equally. If I cut it right there, do those 2 pieces look equal? Yes, that is cutting it into halves. Okay, I'm going to cut my cookie into halves. Here we go. All right, do those 2 pieces look like they are the same size? They are halves. So we've got 2 halves put together makes a whole cookie. Okay, now let's look at our next fraction. Our next fraction is what we call fourths. Fourths. Remember, when we have the S on the end, that means we have more than one piece. So if I'm going to have fourths, you hear the word 4? That means we're going to cut it into 4 pieces to make fourths. Okay, here's my 1 pizza, my 1 orange, and my 1 whole cookie. Here is my 1 whole fraction bar. This time I'm cutting them into fourths. So I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 fourths equals 1 whole. It's the same amount. 4 fourths is the same amount as 1 whole. Do you see that? Okay, let's do the same thing with our pizza. To cut it into fourths, can I cut them like this? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. Do those look like they're the same size? 1, 2, 3, 4. Are they equal size pieces? No, they have to be equal. So I need to move. I'm going to cut it in half one way. Then I'm going to cut it in half the other way. And that makes my pieces exactly the same size. So watch me do it. I'm going to cut it in half. Right down the middle, being very careful. Then I'm going to take each half, look, they're the same size, and I'm going to cut those in half. Now I have 4 pieces of my pizza, and if I put 4 fourths together, 4 fourths makes 1 whole pizza. It's the same amount. 4 fourths is 1 whole. 1 whole pizza, 4 fourths. All right, let's try it with the orange. I need to cut it how first? How did I cut it first to make fourths? Can I cut it right there first? Those are not equal size pieces. I better cut it right down the middle. I'm going to cut it right down the middle to make halves. Then I put the halves together and I cut those in half. Now I have 4 pieces, and 4 fourths makes 1 whole orange. 4 fourths together equals 1 whole orange. 4 fourths makes 1 whole. Let's do it with our cookie. How do I need to cut it first? Can I cut right there? Do those look like equal size pieces? Is that one the same size as this one? Nope, I better cut it right down the middle first because I need 4 fourths, and fourths have to be equal size pieces or they are not fourths. There's in half. Put the halves together. Cut those in half. Now I have 4 fourths. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 4 fourths makes what? What does it make? 1 whole cookie. Now, how do I spell that 1 whole? I keep saying that word whole over and over again, don't I? Do I mean a hole in the ground? Is that what I'm talking about? A hole in the ground? No, I'm talking about a whole cookie. I want the whole thing. I want the whole cookie. So this is how we spell the word whole. The W is silent. 1 whole. This is 1 whole pizza. It's not been cut up at all. It's the whole thing. This is 1 whole cookie. It's the whole thing. This is 1 whole orange. All right, my friends, now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about our next size of fractions, and that is thirds. We're going to learn about thirds. Okay, here is how we spell it. It's got that S on the end, which means we're going to be breaking our pizzas and our oranges and our cookies into more than one piece. Okay. Here, I'll put them in the same order so we don't get confused. All right. So I have 1 whole fraction bar, 1 pizza, 1 orange, and 1 cookie. 1 whole. 1 whole pizza, 1 whole fraction bar, 1 whole orange, and 1 whole cookie. But now I'm going to cut them into thirds. Now, this word thirds kind of sounds like a number. Third. What number starts with third? The number 3. Say it with me. 3. 3. This is thirds, which means we need to cut it into 3 pieces. My thirds have to be equal size pieces. If I cut 1 whole into 3 equal size pieces, I have cut it into thirds. And 3 thirds is the same size as 1 whole. Okay, how am I going to cut these into thirds? The easiest way to do it is to think about drawing a Y on top of it. I'm going to turn it over so you can see the Y that I'm going to draw. I'm going to put a dot right in the middle, and that's what I want you guys to do, to put a dot right in the middle. And then you're going to draw a line straight down towards your tummy. And then from that dot, you're going to draw 2 lines to make a capital Y. Okay, when I make a capital Y, I have cut my pizza into 3 equal size pieces that we call thirds. Okay, so I'm going to cut on those lines, and I'm going to cut my pizza into thirds by cutting a big Y. See my big Y that I'm cutting? I just cut a big Y. Okay, when I have 3 thirds and I put those 3 thirds together, I create 1 whole pizza. If I only have 1 of those pieces, I would call it a third without the S. It would just be 1 third. 1 third. Can you see the numbers? There we go. 1 third. That's what it looks like as a fraction. 1 third. Okay, let's go ahead and look at our orange because we're kind of running out of time. Cutting the orange into thirds. 1, cut, and a Y. Okay, thirds. 1, 2, 3. Now let's cut our cookie. We're running out of time, so I may have to just give you some fraction problems to do on iExcel.